I'm extremely happy that I got a very nice feedback from you all on my previous videos. In the last video, we were talking about the brief anatomy of oral cavity or the mouth. As a continuation, today we are learning in detail about the tongue, the anatomy of tongue. So before entering to the anatomy of tongue, I would like to show you a plant. This plant is popularly called as snake plant or mother-in-law's tongue. And the tongue shape and the tip of this plant can be compared because the shape of the tongue and the tip of this plant is almost similar. So when a beginner is learning the anatomy of the tongue, the parts of the tongue can be made out by comparing with the tip of this plant. In this video, we are going to learn the detailed anatomy of tongue under these following headings. First, we will see the location and various important functions of the tongue. Then the parts of the tongue, muscles of the tongue, then blood supply, nerve supply and lymphatic drainage. Finally, we will explain the clinical anatomy of tongue. By definition, tongue is the muscular organ located in the floor of oral cavity. Structurally, the tongue is made up of different types of skeletal muscles which are covered with mucous membrane. The tongue consists of a fixed part called as root of the tongue. And again there is a free mobile part that is called as tip of the tongue. Again the tongue shows two surfaces. One surface is facing upwards towards the palate. This extensive surface is called as dorsal surface of the tongue or dorsum of the tongue. Again there is a small surface facing downwards and forwards. This is called as inferior surface of the tongue. So again I will repeat, there is a root which is fixed, there is a tip which is mobile, and there is a dorsal surface which is facing upwards, and there is inferior surface which is facing downwards to the floor of oral cavity. There are two borders for the tongue, right and left borders. These are also called as right margin of the tongue and left margin of the tongue. In adults, these right and left margins are showing imprints of the teeth. Again, the dorsal surface of the tongue can be divided into two parts mainly. The anterior major portion of the dorsal surface is called as oral part of the tongue because that is located in the oral cavity proper. So this part is located in front of a mucosal fold. This fold is called as palatoglossal fold, and this fold contains a muscle called as palatoglossus muscle. So the part of tongue in front of this palatoglossal fold, this is called as oral part of the tongue. And again there is a small posterior region, this part that is behind the palatoglossal fold. This is called as pharyngeal part of the tongue because this part is forming the anterior limit of oropharynx. So this is the oropharynx. Its anterior limit is bounded by posterior aspect of the tongue. That's why this part of the tongue is called as pharyngeal part. The tip of the tongue is anterior movable portion. Usually when we are taking rest, the tip of the tongue will be touching the posterior aspect of upper central incisor teeth. Root of the tongue is connected to various bones through certain muscles. So these muscles are genioglossus, hyoglossus, palatoglossus and styloglossus. Genioglossus is a fan-shaped muscle which is extending from genial tubercle of mandible towards the tongue. Hyoglossus is a quadrilateral muscle which is extending from the hyoid bone towards the tongue. Styloglossus extends from styloid process to the tongue, and palatoglossus is from soft palate to the tongue. All these muscles are fixing the correct position of the tongue. Because of this root portion or this fixation, the tongue itself is not swallowed while swallowing the foods or drinks. So when you are learning the anatomy of the tongue you can compare with this particular plant. This is called as the mother-in-law's tongue.
because this is resembling like the tongue. And so that the tongue we got a dorsal surface, that is this upper surface, and again tongue we got a ventral surface, that is this lower surface. Okay, so the ventral surface of the tongue, dorsal surface of the tongue. And again tongue got two borders. So this is the right margin or the right border, and again this is the left margin or the left border. So you can compare the parts of the tongue with this particular plant.
Now let us learn in detail about each part of tongue. First to explain is dorsal surface of the tongue. Dorsal surface is the surface which is facing upwards. The dorsal surface again is divided into three parts: anterior 2/3, posterior 1/3 and the posterior most part. The features of all these three parts are different. So first let us analyze what are the features to be learned in anterior 2/3. This division is because of a V-shaped faint depression called as sulcus terminalis. So this is a faint depression located in the dorsal surface. This depression is called as sulcus terminalis. The limbs of this sulcus terminalis, there are two limbs. These limbs are meeting at a median depression. This is called as foramen cecum. So this median depression is called as foramen cecum. That is the meeting point of right and left limbs of sulcus terminalis. Remember, again in the dorsal surface you can see a median groove, that is median furrow. This will be extending anterior-posteriorly and that will roughly divide into two halves. The dorsal surface will be divided into two halves. The anterior 2/3 portion of dorsal surface is very rough because there are several macroscopic projections called as papillae. Papillae are macroscopic projections which can be seen on the dorsal surface at its ventral 2/3. Remember, there are four types of papillae. Shortly I will explain you the detailed structure of these papillae. But these papillae are providing roughness to the ventral 2/3 portion of dorsal surface. Foramen cecum got embryological significance because at the foramen cecum region there were the thyroid tissue, developing thyroid tissue. Gradually from the foramen cecum, the developing thyroid tissue will be migrating downwards through a duct called as thyroglossal duct. Through this duct, this thyroid tissue will come down again and again till it attains the normal position in adults, that is in anterior-inferior aspect of the neck. So this is the embryological significance of the foramen cecum. There are four types of papillae in the dorsal surface: filiform papillae, fungiform papillae, circumvallate papillae and foliate papillae. Filiform papillae are the smallest papillae but most numerous in number. Remember, these papillae are conical in appearance and scattered everywhere in the dorsal surface. These tiny papillae are providing a velvety appearance to the dorsal surface of the tongue. This is resembling like the sand. Remember, these filiform papillae are devoid of taste buds. Taste buds are microscopic specialized tissue structures which shows presence of receptor cells for the perception of taste sensation. So filiform papillae are the smallest but most numerous in number. Next variety is fungiform papillae. Fungiform papillae are larger than filiform papillae. These got that name because of mushroom shape. There is a narrow trunk region and its upper part will become more wider. This is the mushroom shaped one, that's why fungiform. This we can see here and there. Isolated fungiform papillae you can see little more larger than filiform papillae. Here and there these are also scattered. The taste buds are seen at the apex of these fungiform papillae. The third variety is circumvallate. Circumvallate papillae are also called as vallate papillae. These are the largest papillae and very less in number, hardly 10 to 12 in number. Remember, these circumvallate papillae are very specifically arranged just in front of our sulcus terminalis. So already we have seen that this is our sulcus terminalis. So just in front of sulcus terminalis, you can clearly appreciate the circumvallate papillae are very uniformly, regularly arranged exactly in the shape of the sulcus terminalis. Structurally, the circumvallate papilla consists of a middle pillar-like structure surrounded by a sulcus. So this is how its structure is. Remember, there are numerous taste buds in relation with the circumvallate papillae. Even in the apex and even on the edges of the circumvallate papillae, maximum number of taste buds can be seen. Again, there is a fourth variety of papillae. These are foliate papillae. These are seen at the edges of the tongue, more towards the posterior aspect. These are existing as merely some vertical lines. This will be appearing like vertical lines at the edges or margins, more towards the posterior aspect of the tongue. Next is posterior 1/3 portion of the tongue or pharyngeal part of the tongue. This part is located behind the level of sulcus terminalis. This part is devoid of any papillae, but still this part shows several tiny swellings. These swellings are called as lingual tonsils. Lingual tonsils are lymphoid tissues. These lingual tonsils are contributing for the Valde's lymphatic ring that we will learn under the topic pharynx. This posterior 1/3 portion of the tongue is forming the anterior limit of the oropharynx that we have already discussed earlier. Next is posteriormost part of the tongue. Posteriormost part of the tongue shows the tip of the epiglottis, ventral surface of tip of the epiglottis, where we can appreciate three mucosal folds. These three mucosal folds are called as glossoepiglottic folds because these are connecting tongue and epiglottis. That is why the name glossoepiglottic fold, from tongue to the epiglottis. There are three folds. One is in the median plane. That is why this is called as median glossoepiglottic fold. And two are on either side, that is in the lateral aspect. That is why these are called as lateral glossoepiglottic folds. Median glossoepiglottic fold and lateral glossoepiglottic folds. There are depressions on either side of median glossoepiglottic fold. This is the median glossoepiglottic fold. On right side and left side of it, there is a depression. These depressions are called as vallecula. So this is the right vallecula, this is the left vallecula. The depression on either side of median glossoepiglottic folds. Still more laterally, that means lateral to the lateral glossoepiglottic fold, this is the region of pyriform fossa that we will learn under the pharynx, laryngopharynx. Next is inferior surface of the tongue or the ventral aspect of the tongue. Remember, this is very smooth and the mucous membrane is like the dorsal surface, that is the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. But this ventral surface or inferior surface is smooth because this part is devoid of papillae. No papillae can be seen here. That's why this surface is very smooth. There is a midline or the median plane mucosal fold at the inferior surface of the tongue. This is called as frenulum linguae. This frenulum linguae connects the inferior surface of the tongue to the floor of the mouth. This is not very lengthy and that may not reach up to the tip of the tongue, but it will be terminating at the halfway of inferior surface. Remember, on either side of this frenulum linguae, at the bottom, you can appreciate two tiny swellings. These swellings are called as sublingual papillae. Each sublingual papilla shows again very tiny opening at its apex. This is the opening of submandibular salivary duct. This sublingual papillae that will continue laterally and backwards. This is called as sublingual fault. Again, on either side of the frenulum linguae, we can appreciate a darkish prominence of a vein, that is nothing but the prominence of deep lingual vein. This side, the mucous membrane is disturbed. in order to show how exactly the deep lingual vein is located. So the prominence of this vein will be appreciable on either side of the frenulum linguae. Further laterally, we have a crumbled mucosal fold that is called as plica fimbriata. So these are the features to be appreciated under the floor of the mouth, that is at the inferior surface of the tongue. Again, at the sublingual folds, you can appreciate tiny pinhole sized openings. Multiple openings are there. All these openings are the openings of sublingual salivary glands. Remember, submandibular salivary duct is opening at the sublingual papilla, and sublingual salivary ducts are freely opening to the floor of the mouth. Few sublingual salivary ducts are joining again along with the submandibular salivary duct. Those details we will cover under the topic salivary glands. There is a congenital anomaly for the frenulum linguae that is called as tongue tie or ankyloglossia. In this anomaly, the frenulum linguae will be abnormally thick and short. This will restrict the mobility of the tongue, and this condition is called as tongue tie or ankyloglossia. Structurally, the tongue is nothing but some skeletal muscles which are covered with the mucous membrane. And these muscles are very important. These muscles are responsible for the proper movement of the tongue. There are totally 8 muscles in the tongue, 4 intrinsic muscles and 4 extrinsic muscles. Intrinsic muscles are restricted within the tongue, but extrinsic muscles are coming from somewhere else and getting inserted to the tongue. Before going to the details of this muscle, I will introduce you a structure called as median fibrous septum. This median fibrous septum will divide the tongue into right and left halves. Each half consists of 4 intrinsic and 4 extrinsic muscles. The intrinsic muscles are superior longitudinal muscle, inferior longitudinal muscle, vertical muscle and transverse muscles. Remember, superior longitudinal muscles are directed antero-posteriorly, and that is located towards the dorsal surface just beneath the mucous membrane. And inferior longitudinal muscles are also directed antero-posteriorly, but these are located more towards the lower aspect of the tongue. Transverse muscle fibers. These fibers are arising from this median fibrous septum, and that will pass towards the margins of the tongue horizontally. And vertical muscles fibers are directed from above downwards, interdigitating with these transverse muscle fibers. So these are the intrinsic muscles. Remember, all these intrinsic muscles are helping to change the shape of the tongue. And this will help you to learn how exactly these intrinsic muscles are changing the shape of the tongue. Superior longitudinal muscle and inferior longitudinal muscle, these two muscles are shortening the tongue. If these two muscles are contracting, tongue will become short. But remember, only superior longitudinal muscle is contracted, means other than shortening the tongue, the superior surface will become more concave. Again, inferior longitudinal muscles are contracting, means superior surface will become more convex. The transverse muscles are contracted, means tongue will become more elongated from side to side. If transverse muscles are contracting, tongue will become more elongated and narrow. But if vertical muscles are contracted from above downwards, tongue will become more broader and flattened. So these are the actions of intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Next is extrinsic muscles of the tongue. These muscles are for changing the position of the tongue in various directions. Earlier we talked that extrinsic muscles are attached to different various other bones which are in and around this head and neck region. But these muscles are attached to the tongue. The first muscle to be learned is genioglossus muscle. This is a large fan-shaped muscle which forms the main bulk of the tongue. Bulkiest muscle of the tongue is genioglossus muscle. Remember, this genioglossus muscle is arising from genial tubercle of mandible. We have learned under the mandible, inner surface of body of mandible shows 4 genial tubercles, 2 above, 2 below. The upper genial tubercles are providing origin to the genioglossus, and the lower genial tubercle provides the origin of geniohyoid muscle. So from upper genial tubercle we have the genioglossus, which is a fan-shaped, expanded and bulkiest muscle of the tongue. This genioglossus got 3 sets of fibers: upper, middle and lower fibers. The upper fibers are arising from the genial tubercle, and that is fanning towards the tip of the tongue like this, in this direction. And middle fibers are going backwards, again that will be getting attached to the dorsal aspect of the tongue. Further we have the lower fibers. These lower fibers are going towards the hyoid bone. So these are the 3 sets of fibers of genioglossus. And remember, genioglossus muscle is called as safety muscle of the tongue. I will explain you shortly about it. Next is palatoglossus. Palatoglossus is coming from the soft palate, exactly speaking from the undersurface of palatine aponeurosis. So this muscle will pass through a mucosal fold called as palatoglossal fold, and that is getting inserted to the edges of the tongue at the junction between ventral 2/3 and dorsal 1/3. This is the insertion of palatoglossus muscle. This muscle is helping for elevation of this tongue. Next is styloglossus. Styloglossus is arising from the styloid process, and it is running forwards and downwards, and this styloglossus will be inserted to the margin of the tongue, but few fibers are interdigitating with the hyoglossus muscle, and that will continue as inferior longitudinal muscle of the tongue. This styloglossus will help for retraction of the tongue, that is movement towards the back. It will pull back. Next is hyoglossus. Hyoglossus muscle is coming from the hyoid bone. Major fibers are arising from the greater horn of hyoid bone, and this is a quadrilateral muscle. And this is directed, the fibers are directed towards the tongue, and this hyoglossus will get inserted between the inferior longitudinal muscle and styloglossus at the sides of the tongue. And this muscle will help to pull the tongue downwards, and this will make the dorsal surface more convex. This is the hyoglossus muscle. And this box will help you to learn what exactly the action of each extrinsic muscle is. Genioglossus, as I told you, that will protrude the tongue. This is the main action of the genioglossus, protrusion of the tongue. And the hyoglossus, that is depressing the tongue, and that will make the dorsal surface more convex. And styloglossus muscle, that is retracting the tongue, that will pull the tongue backwards. And the palatoglossus is elevating the tongue, and that will make the dorsal surface more concave. That is palatoglossus muscle. Remember, again, genioglossus we called as the safety muscle of the tongue or life-saving muscle. There is a reason, because its main action is to protrude the tongue or pulling the tongue forwards. If the tongue is pulled forwards, definitely that will maintain the patency of our airway. Imagine a condition where bilateral paralysis of the genioglossus happens. Definitely the tongue will be pushed backwards. This is called as retraction of the tongue. If it is happening, definitely there will be choking. The airway will get obstructed. Remember, this is not happening because of pulling of the genioglossus. By genioglossus, the tongue is pulled forwards, and this is why the genioglossus is called as safety muscle of the tongue or life-saving muscle. Tongue receives its arterial supply from 3 arteries. The main artery which is supplying to the tongue is lingual artery. Other than lingual artery, there are two more arteries. Tonsillar artery, that is a branch from the facial artery, and ascending pharyngeal artery, again there is a branch of external carotid artery. These arteries are providing branches towards the root region of the tongue, but rest of the regions are supplied by the lingual artery. The lingual artery is a branch of external carotid artery very close to the greater horn of hyoid bone. So the lingual artery in its course, this course can be divided into three parts. First part, second part, third part. Remember, this division is because of our quadrilateral muscle called as hyoglossus muscle. In this picture, hyoglossus muscle we were cutting in order to show how exactly the lingual artery is passing deep to it. The first part of the lingual artery, that is from the origin, from the external carotid artery till it reaches to the hyoglossus muscle level. Here it got a loop portion. This loop is allowing the hyoid bone to move freely. Second part of the lingual artery is lying deep to the hyoglossus muscle. This part will run forwards and it will reach to the anterior border of the hyoglossus. Further, it will take an upward vertical course. This is called as third part. The lingual artery at this third part is called as deep lingual artery. This is targeting towards the tongue and it will continue towards the anterior aspect of the tongue and it will provide several branches in order to supply this tongue. This is the third part of the lingual artery. Remember, the first part is crossed by the hypoglossal nerve superficially. Next is venous drainage from the tongue. Remember, we have a vein called as deep lingual vein, that is corresponding to the deep lingual artery. Corresponding to that, we have a deep lingual vein, but to the deep lingual vein, different venae comitants are draining. All these venae comitants and this deep lingual vein, everything will be joining to the internal jugular vein. This is the termination of lingual vein, that is deep lingual vein, internal jugular vein. Next is lymphatic drainage of the tongue. The lymph from various parts of the tongue drains to various lymph nodes. This is clinically very important, especially in case of malignancy of the tongue, that is tongue cancer. The lymph from the tip of the tongue, that is draining to the submental nodes bilaterally. That means from the right side of tongue that can go to left side and left side of tongue that can come to right side of the lymph nodes. So this is the lymphatic drainage from the tip of the tongue, that is to submental lymph nodes. And again, the lymph from the anterior two-third portion of the rest of the anterior two-third portions drains to submandibular lymph nodes. That too from the median septum, median area, that will be draining bilaterally. That means from the left side that can come to right side, from right side that can come to left side. But from the edges of the tongue from anterior two-third, that is draining unilaterally to the submandibular lymph nodes. Again, the lymph from the posterior aspect, that will drain to deep cervical lymph nodes, that is jugulo-digastric group of lymph nodes. And ultimately all the lymph will be draining finally to the jugulo-omohyoid group of lymph nodes. Under the topic nerve supply of the tongue, we have to explain two headings. Motor innervation of the tongue, that is how the muscles of the tongue is getting its motor supply. Next is sensory innervation. So the motor innervation of the tongue, there are totally 8 muscles. Out of 8 muscles, 7 muscles are supplied by the 12th cranial nerve, that is hypoglossal nerve. Remaining 1 cranial nerve, that is our palatoglossus. This is supplied by the cranial root of accessory nerve through the pharyngeal plexus. So all muscles of the tongue are supplied by hypoglossal nerve except palatoglossus. Palatoglossus is supplied by cranial accessory nerve through pharyngeal plexus. Next is sensory innervation to the tongue. Remember, sensory innervation we have to explain under general sensation and special sensation, that is taste sensation. All the parts of the tongue will be showing general sensation and taste sensation. Remember, The taste sensation from anterior two-third portion of the tongue except circumvallate papillae, that is excluding circumvallate papillae. The taste from this part is carried by a nerve called as coda tympani nerve. This is a branch of facial nerve. Remember, general sensation from this anterior two-third portion, that is carried by lingual nerve. That general sensation also is except circumvallate papillae. So from the anterior two-third portion of the tongue, except circumvallate papillae, general sensation is carried by lingual nerve. Taste sensation is carried by coda tympani nerve. And remember, from posterior one-third portion of the tongue, both general sensation and taste sensation is carried by glossopharyngeal nerve. This glossopharyngeal nerve carries both general and taste sensation from circumvallate papillae also. So from posterior one-third of the tongue, including circumvallate papillae, general sensation and taste sensation is carried by glossopharyngeal nerve. Further, from the posterior most part of the tongue, that is this vallecular region, both general sensation and taste sensation is carried by a nerve called as internal laryngeal nerve, that is a branch of superior laryngeal nerve, ultimately from vagus nerve. So this is the sensations from posterior most part of the tongue. Now let us discuss some clinical anatomy of the tongue. Glossitis is the condition where inflammation of the tongue. Glossitis is the term denoting inflammation of the tongue. Aphthous ulcer can happen, that is the mouth ulcer can develop in the tongue. That can be because of the tongue bite or even as an inflammatory response, aphthous ulcer can be seen. Next is cancer of the tongue, CA tongue or malignancy. This is quite common, especially in the tobacco chewers. There are two congenital anomalies called microglossia and macroglossia. Microglossia is the condition where the tongue size is very less, abnormally smaller tongue. And macroglossia is the condition where tongue will be abnormally lengthy or longer. Safety muscle of the tongue is our genioglossus because of its protraction of the tongue. Its action is protrusion or protraction of the tongue, and that will give the airway patent. So that's why genioglossus is called as safety muscle of the tongue.